President Biden reaching across the aisle to gain support for his Supreme Court nominee. The president has not yet revealed who he will name to fill Justice Stephen Breyer's seat. However, he promises that this nominee will be a black woman. Some names already believed to be on the president's short list are D.C. Circuit Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, California Supreme Court Justice Leandra Kruger, and South Carolina U.S. District Court Judge J. Michelle Childs. Whoever it is, she will make history, just as Baltimore's Thurgood Marshall did back in 1967. And here to talk a little history with us, as always, is Philip Merrill. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you getting up with us.
It's a pleasure always.
As we prepare for an announcement on the Supreme Court right now, the push right now and the guarantee, I guess, is that it'll be an African-American woman. We want to look back in history to Thurgood Marshall and the mark that he made. A totally different time and momentous, I'm guessing, especially here in Baltimore.
Beyond momentous, pioneering, groundbreaking, and it actually set precedent for where we are today. I don't want to talk about Clarence Thomas, obviously, but Baltimore gets a chance to shine again in the legal world because Baltimore is the city that made Thurgood Marshall.
Certainly.
Before he goes to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania or Howard Law School, he matriculates in historical West Baltimore, and he first encounters segregation at School 103, which is now a historic site that may end up being part of the National Park Service. So yes, 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 yes.
What was so important at that time was his involvement with the NAACP, and I think it all came together because of the civil rights movement at that time. The movement now, right now, and I'll get you to compare the two. Compare the moment then and this moment now.
Well, there's no comparison because back during the 60s when Marshall, in 67, when he was actually admitted to the Supreme Court Justice, you knew what you were dealing with and what you were against with regard to rights, legislation, and people's behavior. In present day, you have such trickery and fake news and people just blatantly ignoring the law and flipping the script for the GOP whenever they want to do it. It wasn't that kind of game back in 1967. So I think it's a difference of apples and oranges. Yes, it was still affecting Black folk in their ability to survive. But today it's a whole new battlefield. We got different victims, different warriors. And I really think that what President Biden is doing is critical for us to move forward in the 2022 and the future.
As you go through your research, I'm curious about the pride at the time and what people felt to see his face among the other robed justices there on the Supreme Court.
The pride, you know what, it probably would have broken the meter of pride if there was a phrase as a pride meter or measurement tool or whatever. I mean, it was enormous because this man was involved in so many critical cases before getting to 1967 when he was sworn in. And I want to drop some real Baltimore history on you. I'm holding up a book right here called Proud Shoes by Pauli Murray. And I need you all to Google this because Pauli Murray hit up President Nixon in 1971 suggesting that she be what? A Supreme Court justice. A black female with Baltimore roots hit up the president asking, could you put me on the Supreme Court?
Wow.
Unheard of. And her 700-page case helped Thurgood Marshall defend Brown v. Board. So when you talk about the role of black women and you talk about Baltimore, Baltimore is an iconic place with regard to the nature of civil rights history in America. And so, yes, we were proud. And we're even prouder today because everyone now wants to keep circling back to that momentous occasion when he was sworn in.
And, you know, it's interesting because now as you fly in and out of Baltimore, you're forced to know the history and you're forced to say his name a bit.
Well, yeah, and that was a struggle that, you know, came from legal expert and longtime activist attorney Larry Gibson. You know, so it's exciting that it's a part of a big international airport. It's exciting that the National Park Service is reviewing his first school that really will bring a positive spin to his legal legacy. It's exciting that he went to 2 HBCUs. And so we need this kind of energy, synergy, chemistry emanating out of Baltimore's historical landscape.
Listen, I have 30 seconds left, and I always love to give you time to talk about what you're working on right now. And I know it's probably something good. What do you have? What are you cooking?
I just signed a contract for a new TV show that will air in America and across the globe.
Wow.
That I can't tell you really a whole lot about, but I know you will be interested.
Okay.
And maybe we could talk about it later. I'm flying to New York next week to film.
Always something good coming out of the Merrill household. Philip Merrill, thank you so much. Always good to see you, brother.
Good to see you. Thank you. Stay safe, my friend.
Certainly. Take care. Joining us now is Dr. Malia Cromer, always a friend of the show to talk a little politics. How are you?
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you. Let's just jump right in and we'll go with state politics and the governor. He had his State of the State address, big on crime, big on education. What stood out to you?
Well, I think one thing that stands out after watching 7 of his previous State of the State addresses is how consistent Governor Hogan has been in his messaging. He's still using the same sort of change Maryland themes that we saw from that very first State of the State. What stood out to me as like the most important, and I think the most clear pivot, and the step forward is some of his messaging around COVID. He made a clear statement that we're going to have to learn to live with the disease rather than some of the restrictions that have been put in place in terms of preventative measure. And you're seeing this from other public health professionals across the country, but there certainly will be some friction on that as we move past this most recent surge and as we start to develop some public policies how to deal with the disease moving forward.
What do you think about this last year in office for him? Where does he go? I mean, he doesn't seem like the lame duck type that'll be, go away quietly. What do you think?
Well, so especially this last legislative session, it is his last chance to enact some of those tax cuts in which he's been pushing unsuccessfully for the last 7 years. The big one with the state retiree, the income tax for retirees. He made the comments during the State of the State that we have a budget surplus, and now the reasoning for not enacting them before was because of the budget, and now there should be enough money. The Democrats are obviously going to push back against that, and Senator Will Smith's response to the governor's State of the State mentioned Maryland's standing in terms of public education, and with the current commission, those policies being enacted, we're going to see the Democrats really push for more money for public education in the state, like they have during Hogan's entire 2 terms in office.
His future, I mean, it's kind of limitless. I think he can sort of write his ticket, at least for running for the office. Not saying he'd win it, but it seems like the door is kind of wide open for him.
So there's, the 2 doors that are really open for Hogan. And I think that a lot of people in the state are certainly waiting for that February 22nd filing deadline of whether he decides to jump into the race against Chris Van Hollen. He's been pretty clear that is not a path that he plans on taking. However, has always left that door open just in case. There's obviously the path to the presidency that the governor seems to be more focused on pursuing. Unlike a lot of folks in the Republican Party who are the sort of non-Trump, anti-Trump flavor, Hogan is different from some of his other contemporaries in that he's really clear that the Republican Party is the future. He wants to see a future for the Republican Party, believes in these sort of ideals of the Republican Party. Unlike those who are anti-Trump and have defected, he is still very stalwart in his Republican beliefs.
So the door is open for him to leave and find a new experience. That means the door is also open for the governor's mansion. A wide field, as we've seen before this week. Tom Perez named a former Baltimore City Councilwoman Shannon Sneed as his running mate. Does anyone stand out to you, or is there more buzz about one than the other? Or are we just sort of like in this big glob and hoping for something to shake out?
Well, hopefully the Goucher College poll will be able to shed some more light on who's actually up, and we should be in the field in the next coming weeks, and we'll be able to have a snapshot of who's actually leading this race. It's really difficult to say at this point. Obviously, we've seen some fundraising numbers from the Democrats and some of the Republicans. Among the Democrats, there are some who have put up some serious fundraising numbers. Wes Moore will be the person who comes first to mind. And then on the Republican side, we have a really interesting dynamic with former Commerce Secretary Kelly Schulz, who's been endorsed by Hogan, versus Delegate Dan Cox, who has been endorsed by Donald Trump, and what that actually means for the Republican side of the race, and then especially who wins that and how viable one of the other would be in a general election against a Democrat.
Right. That's Dr. Malia Cromer over at Goucher. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.